you're able to put Linto and McAvoy together. You can do a whole lot with just having a guy like Zadorov, who again has kind of the D zone and the PK work that a guy like Forward gave you, but with more upside and physicality. He can break the puck out like Grizzly, even though they are vastly different after that in terms of their player profiles.
People are like, don't mention Matt Grizzly. How freaking dare you?
Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks and the Gametime app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 245, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get up to $100 cash back on that first deposit. And we're presented by Gametime. Use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Are those the Apple headphones?
They are. Yes, I can't find my actual headphones, so we're making do today.
Do you like those? I see them advertised.
No,
I see people with them all the time, but you don't like them?
Yeah, no, my hat's all crooked now. It's not great. It's not a good look, Evan.
Yeah, well, I think it looks fine. I was just wondering because I always see them, and you see them in like trendy Apple hipster commercials. You know, when you remember when you were little, maybe this was just me, but I'd see the Apple commercials, and I'd see the people in them running with like the wired headphones or doing stuff on an iPhone. I'd be like, I have to have that. I have to have that. And now I have one, and it's not the same.
It's like everyone wanted those Beats by Dre, right? And you again back in the day, you'd spend like $199, which was like 5 months. Like you'd save up 5 months for that, and then you get it and be like, this is fine. I'm going back to the usual Apple headphones.
I remember when I was in like 7th grade, Beats by Dre were everywhere. And I remember like I had to get a pair so I could like lock in before my youth hockey games listening to like No Church in the Wild. Just like, like No Church and like just absolutely jamming in the locker room. Like those were the days. And I agree. I wore them for like a year and then they collected dust in the back of my room.
You must have been a big fan of the new Gladiator trailer then. They had No Church in the Wild in that. People were like,
oh, did they?
And people are like, why is there a rap song in this gladiatorial thing? As if
you're ruining it.
Yes, exactly. It's a movie, guys. Enjoy it.
Also, No Church in the Wild slaps. That's like universal.
Yeah, exactly.
I think everyone loves that song.
You could drop a movie about Bonnie in 2024, 25, and you played No Church in the Wild in the trailer thing. I'd be hyped. I'd go see it.
Oh, easily. The big purple dinosaur, just absolutely with the kids, like playing that in the background. It's like, have you heard the Top Dog Law radio commercials? Every time I hear one of those, I'm like ready to run through a brick wall. Have you heard those?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, listen, like as much as it might sound unorthodox, sometimes you mashing two things together, like that's fine. It's like what did Elvis have for like his sandwich? It's like bananas and like peanut butter on a sandwich, something like that. Seems a little weird, but I'll have it. Ketchup on mac and cheese. Oh. Bonnie and Watch the Throne and the trailer mashed together. It sounds great.
That's that's Flavortown combo right there. Barney and No Church in the Wild. That'd be great.
People are furious already.
I was say I did see someone comment on our last video. Why do I have to skip to 5 minutes in to hear the Bruins talk? And someone, I meant to like the comment. I put my phone away quickly. They were like, there's this magical thing where you can scroll ahead if you really don't like what they're talking about. And I agree. I concur with this. If you don't like our intros or what we're saying at the beginning, you could scroll ahead. You are able to do that with the power of YouTube, with the power of Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Whatever you use,
it's gonna be okay, guys. Don't worry,
it'll be okay because we have a few like a minute and a half before the 5 minute mark, which is, as everybody knows, that's when we really kick things into gear. You know what movie I watched for the first time last night? Back to the Future. Back to the Future. I'd never seen it before, so it's on Netflix. Great movie, classic. Gonna have to watch the trilogy now. So really loved it. It's great.
It's a good one. That's one that I only saw that a couple of years ago as well. Never seen E.T. actually. So
I've never seen E.T. in full either.
But I know how it ends. So
what, E.T. or Back to the Future?
I mean, I saw Back to the Future, but no, I know E.T. ends. Dude leaves, just takes off.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, he takes off to No Church in the Wild. I think that
he does.
How that movie ends. Yeah.
Let me tell you, if that dropped in theaters and whenever that came out in the late 70s, and the opening beats that kick and Frank Ocean's on the hook as E.T. takes off, I think people would be going crazy.
Nuts. I'd be standing up in the theater. Today on Poke the Bear, we're going to do line projections. This is going to be our first edition of line projections. Feels like the Bruins are done making big moves. Again, maybe, a smaller veteran addition down the road. Obviously, got to re-sign Jeremy Swayman. That seems like it's going to absolutely happen, given that Swayman was in the Bruins schedule release video. And he wasn't just like one of, he wasn't in the whole team. 3 guys were in it. At Warrior. So I'm going to count Swayman as back next year. And so let's do it. Let's project the lines. By the way, I love the someone asked us, they tagged us in a tweet about Brandon Carlo trade rumors, whether or not that's going to happen. So I've been getting like notifications on it for the last day. Yeah. That's not happening. No, I don't know where those rumors came from. I don't know who started those. I don't think Brandon Carlo is going to be leaving here anytime soon.
No. And also, like, you look at that contract that people at the time are like, I don't know if you feel good about giving that much money. $4 million for a top 4 guy who's very, very steady in his own end. That's pretty damn good when you look at how much the cap's going to be jumping up the next couple of years.
You take that. You take that every time. So, lines. We'll start with forwards, then we'll go to D. Goalie, I guess we could debate backup or the starter. Jeremy Swayman not back? Who knows? Let's start with forwards. What is your first line?
Yeah, I'm going with, I don't think we have to, harp too much on this one, but I'm going to go Zacha, left wing, Elias Lindholm down the middle, and Pasternak on the right side. I think Lindholm and Pasternak is a lock there, right, in terms of the Bruins have already mapped out that Lindholm is best in a featured role. They want to get him back to maybe not the 42-goal, 82-point guy he was that 1 year in Calgary, but a consistent 60, 65-point guy who can impact the game on the other end of the ice as well. I think stapling him next to David Pasternak makes a whole lot of sense there. Again, he's a gifted passer, Lindholm, so he should be able to unlock more out of David Pasternak's game and being a threat in his own right to score. And again, I think you look at the impact of having a guy down the middle like Lindholm. It allows you to either push guys further down the lineup or maybe put them into roles better suited towards their skill set. And again, I think Pavel Zacha did an admirable job. I mean, he had 59 points. Did a pretty damn good job. Did a pretty damn good job playing down the middle last year. But I think moving him to wing, still keeping him with David Pasternak and another talented player like Lindholm, I just feel like putting him on the wing just has him playing a more simplified game. And if it gets him to shoot the puck more and just kind of, not try to do a little bit too much there in what his role is, I think he can be a consistent 50, maybe 60-point guy, kind of riding shotgun on that line with those 2 guys. So I think that's the safest bet in terms of the top line and the one that I think makes the most sense.
I agree. My first line's the exact same. I think keeping Zacha and Pasternak together, those 2 have had a lot of success in the past, and Lindholm with Pasternak is like a given because of the comments that Sweeney and them made, and I think that it makes the most sense. Top line center with your top line right wing. I think that's don't overthink it. Second line, I think this is where you can kind of get a little more creative.
Yes. The whole rest gets all kind of messed up after that. So
that's the thing. I think that the rest is where you start to see a lot of changes. So I'll start with my initial second line. I think we probably have a similar second line, but then I have an alternative second line that I also am kind of intrigued by. I don't know if they'll do it, but I'll start with what I think they're going to go with. And that's Marchand on the left, Coyle down the middle, Lysell on the right. Marchand with Coyle is pretty obvious. But I have Lysell on the right. I think that's the one. Obviously, everyone's wondering who's going to be that second line right wing. I think the team's comments, what Fabian Lysell's ceiling is, what they hope he can be at the NHL level, is a top 6 right wing. And here's an opportunity after 2 pro seasons to be a top line right wing in the NHL as a first round pick. And this is your chance. Neither of us have said, he's going to fit like a glove. That's going to, he's going to score 30 goals and fit there for the next 10 years. But what we do know is that looks like it's his spot. They didn't go out and acquire a second line right winger in free agency. To me, it's Lysell there. I think he gets the first crack at it. I think he makes the most sense for it in-house. But again, I think that that's my full second line. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely think Marchand and Coyle, that makes the most sense. They're 2 guys that I think play well together. You have, 2 guys that can impact the game as 2-way players. And I think even though, you can make the case that Coyle is best suited as a third line center, right, where he's been for most of his time, I think last year proved that, is he a 1C? Probably not, but if you push him further down the lineup and every night he's not really matched up against the Barkovs and the Matthews, I think he can still be kind of that, maybe like solid 2C, elite 3C, whereas before I think it's like, I don't think he should really be in a top 6 role. I think he can be a very solid 2C, especially if you got good talent around him. So putting him with Marchand makes a lot of sense. Marchand obviously is going to be 36 next season. Still, I think can be an impact top 6 player, even if he's maybe not a top 3 left wing in the game like he was for the last 5 or 6 years, but still a really good player in his own right. And then, I think it just comes down to that right wing spot. For me, I'm going to go a little bit more conservative, at least out of the gate. I'm going to go with Morgan Geekie up there for right now. And again, we'll get to Lysell. He's definitely on my roster, a little bit further down. But I think out of the gate, if you're the Bruins, and again, I think you want to see them give guys like Lysell and Poitras, some of these younger players, an extended look. But I feel like you got to make some concessions, or they're not going to go all in terms of just handing him a top 6 role right out of the gate. So I think probably at the start you roll with a guy like Geekie who exceeded expectations as we all expected, right? Like got, I think, an average of 4 minutes more ice time per game with the Bruins and almost had 40 points. Solid two-way guy, more physical than I think most of us expected. I think putting him in that role, maybe you can get something even more out of him. Like, again, you put him in that spot and let's say they stay together the whole year. I don't know if Geekie's going to be a 25-goal, 60-point guy, but I think he can be a pretty solid complement for what that group is. And then you, again, further down the lineup, you let some of your younger players, you let them cut their teeth, get into the NHL, and then you give them the chance to move up in the lineup. But I think for early October, when the Bruins are just trying to start things out, I could see them kind of going slow and steady with a guy like Geekie in that spot to lead things off.
If these were the Bruce Cassidy days, Lysell would start on the second line, do like a game, and then be like, goodbye. I crossed you. I've got you. You know, I've done my time with you, and it's time to put Morgan.
Just send him to the gulag after one game.
Right to the log. Yeah, I don't think that's, again, I wouldn't be surprised if they went that route. I think, we say this all the time about NHL head coaches. When you need to win, when you want to win, which they all want to win, you're more apt to go with a veteran guy in a big spot like that. And with Lysell, you're going to have growing pains. We said this on Bruins Beat earlier this week. The Bruins are a legit Stanley Cup contender. Geekie's going to make less mistakes. I think Lysell has a much higher ceiling of what he could be. But when you're trying to win a cup, you need guys like Geekie who are just stable, sturdy, and you like him up there because it continues to reinforce how your column about him last summer aged like a fine wine. So I think that is a personal incentive into that as well, which I agree with. We all want to live and die by our takes. I have an interesting alternative to the second line, and then we have to get into the bottom 6. But first, quick words from our friends over at PrizePicks.
The NBA Finals are over, and the Celtics are champions, but there's still so many ways for you to get in on the action and win up to 100 times your cash on PrizePicks, as you and the world's best players take the game to a whole new level on the court, baseball diamond, and much more. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stats projections, and you're locked in. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Get on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and a huge selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. With the finals over, the hoop action doesn't stop on PrizePicks. Women's basketball is still heating up. With stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves, alongside greats like Brianna Stewart and Aja Wilson, you could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. There's no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks. This week, I'm selecting Caitlin Clark for more than 25 points and Tanner Houck for more than 7 strikeouts. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, let's get back to the show.
So I do have a fun little second line that I don't think they're going to go with, but, you never know how training camp shakes out. Marchand, Poitras, Coyle. If they wanted to, if Poitras really emerged, if Coyle was better on the right side. Again, I like Coyle down the middle a lot more. But you do sneaky have a lot of centers on this team. Not just, Lindholm, Coyle, Poitras. You got Geekie, you've got Frederick, you've got Kostelik, Beecher, Merkulov. Like, you have all these guys, which we'll get to in a bit. So I don't know. Interesting second line, but I think it's going to be Marchand, Coyle. Lysell, at least that's what I would go with.
Yeah.
Third line. What do you have for your third line, Connor?
Yeah, so this is my third line that is primarily younger players, but also I think gives them some leeway. One, to get back into the swing of things, but also give them a chance to maybe elevate their game as the year goes on. So mine is Frederic, Poitras, and Lysell. And I think Frederick's a good guy to pair with those two players because one, he's at this point he's a veteran, which is weird to think, but he is 27. He is a guy that uh, you know can stand up for two younger players that are just trying to navigate through the NHL, which I think is useful to have. But I think you look at just kind of how Frederick's games evolve. One, he's already a player that still I think has a more to give and could be a consistent 20 goal player. I think you saw him continue to take steps forward this past year. And he's a guy that maybe you want to see what he can do driving a line as kind of the go-to player there. But I think you see whether it's, on the third line in spots where he's been bumped up to like more of a top six role or what have you. He just seems to have a knack for doing all the little small things that make the rest of his line mates that much better. Whether it's winning puck battles along the boards, whether it's, hanging around grade A ice and, tipping pucks, getting rebounds, those things. I feel like he does a lot of the dirty work that maybe you don't really notice all that much, but makes life so much easier for his line mates. So if you have him in that spot and you put him with a guy like Poitras who's coming off shoulder surgery, but wants to, maybe you want to give him a little bit easier matchups, leading things off on the third line, putting him with another kind of skilled playmaker like Fabian Lysell and let them kind of build some chemistry together and maybe have a little bit more upside. I think it's a good way to start things off there. And again, if we're in December and Poitras on like a 50-point pace or Lysell's been great out of the gate, maybe you change things around. It's a great problem to have if you're the Bruins, that all of a sudden your third line is producing at that level and you're like, is Poitras a guy that warrants a top six promotion? Is it Lysell? Can he replace Geeky? Like if you're trying to get more skill up there, I think like in terms of I think that's what the Bruins would ideally love to have happen, but I think starting things off, you want to get them on the third line, get them up against, maybe easier matchups against other bottom six opponents and kind of go from there.
I like that second part. I like it all, but I like that part about, making sure they get good matchups. I think it's going to be key for them. I also have Frederic and Poitras. I think that's a good, 1-2 tandem. Merkulov could easily go in that third line spot. We'll get to him in a bit. But I think he would be the other option as that third line center. My right side, I got Morgan Geeky. So I just kind of flip-flop what you had. I like Geeky in that third line spot. I like both him and Frederic sort of insulating Matt Poitras a little bit on that line, what those two can bring with him. And, I think, in terms of Poitras over Merkulov for that third line, I mentioned this to you last week. Merkulov played a lot more last year. He's been very productive the last 2 years in the AHL. They like where his game is going. I just think Poitras is more a Bruins kind of center and has had success at the NHL level. You really started to see it last year before it was unfortunately cut short. I think they want to see more of it, and obviously we're going to get a good sense of training camp of where he's at physically and all that stuff. I did like when Poitras was talking about putting on weight. I think it was Steve Conroy from the Herald was like, yeah, we can all teach you how to do that.
Yes.
But which I thought was great. But I put Poitras in the middle between Frederic and Geeky. Fourth line time. This is another area where I think there's a lot of debate. Very interesting. I've got Jones on the left, Kostelic down the middle. I got Brazeau on the right. Brazeau could play higher in the lineup. I think we all agree on that. I just think I think Lysell gets a shot over him in the top six. I think Geeky fits more in that third line than Brazeau does. I think it's more of, all right, Justin Brazeau is going to have to, push his way up again. Max Jones, they went out and signed. He's been a, career fourth liner so far. Big, heavy, very physical, aggressive. I think he's going to have a spot on that fourth line for sure on the left side. And then I think it comes down to Beecher and Kostelic for that fourth line center spot. I go with Kostelic. You got him in that Ullmark trade. You clearly like him. He's big. Fits the same mold that Jones does, a right shot centerman. So again, I think they go with him. For my lineup, that's 4 right shot centermen, which again, you do want to have some lefties. That's why Johnny Beecher would be my 13th forward. And I think they're going to make Beecher earn his way back in. I think he totally can. But I think they're going to try to start off with that big fourth line. I remember when we did this last year, I was like, they're going to put Boquist down the middle. And you were like, yeah, but Boquist is awful on draws. And I was like, I know, but nobody's good on draws on this team. And Boquist did end up being a fourth line center towards the end of the year, and it worked out for a little bit. I mean,
Yes.
great on draws, but he was, in and around. So it's a tough call between him and Beecher, but I think they go with Kostelnik at least to start. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, I'm going with more of like an identity role or an identity line there. And I think you're looking for a speed and physicality. So I'm going with Jones, Beecher, and Kastelik with the option that you can kind of roll with either one of those guys to take faceoffs with a left shot and a right shot out there as well.
I like that.
Between Kastelik and Beecher. Again, I think people are impressed with Brazeau, and I think he's got more to give. And he's a guy that would not be surprised if he's your 13th forward. He gets him in for a couple of games, scores a few goals, and fights and gets a more featured role. But I think on that fourth line, when you look at what Neely mentioned during his last press conference about needing speed there, I think you look at the way Kastelik plays and how aggressive he is on the forecheck. Jones is the same way. We've all seen Beecher's speed. If those guys are all rolling at the same time, you've got, a line that can kind of be similar to what you've seen in years past with some of these other teams that have had elite fourth lines like Carolina, right? Where it's just nonstop, high motor. They can do some damage. They have probably a more upside than we think, right? Like, it's not to say that I think all of a sudden Max Jones or Kastelik are going to have like 15 goals or, it's going to be one of those like where they got Wagner and he breaks out and he's got like 15, 16 goals, something like that, right? But I think all three of those guys, Beecher, Kastelik, and Jones, can give you like 15 to 20 points. Like they probably have more room to grow, especially a guy like Beecher. So I think that's going with those three gives you, again, two guys that are really good at faceoffs, a lot of speed up front, which is something that, Brazeau is not, I think, as slow as we heard when the Bruins, called him up. We're like, oh, this guy's got to work on his skating. It's like when they talked about Markulov and his defensive game years back, and they're like, let me tell you, pal, you don't have to burn the tape when he's in the
Get ready for this.
Like Brazeau is not, again, as gifted as skaters, maybe those other guys. He's not a liability, I'd say, in that area. But if you're looking for just the identity I think you want to carve out on your checking unit, I'm going to go with Jones, Beecher, Kastelik, at least out of the gate.
I like that line. I just have a tough time leaving Brazeau out of the lineup. And maybe that'll age poorly, but I liked what I saw from him at the end of last year. They brought him right back in the playoffs, into the roster. So, like, I don't know. I have a tough time leaving him off. And I agree with you. Like, I don't think he's the perfect fourth liner. I think he slots in as a top 9 substitute, as a guy that comes in when someone gets hurt, but again, I'm fine with that fourth line that you projected too. So for me, I mean, it's tough because we both leave Merkulov off, at least right now, and we'll see what happens in training camp. It's tough to leave him off though. Like, that's the one thing where I when I was putting these lines together, I was like, I want to get him in somewhere, but I want him down the middle and I want him in the top 9. I think the one spot is that third line center spot, like, does Patra grab that, or do they want him to physically mature a little bit more playing professional hockey down in Providence? I think that's possible. I don't think that's crazy. I just think Patra, given what he brings, given his style, fits the Bruins mold a little bit more in a year where they are clearly have Stanley Cup aspirations. We'll get to the defense and the goaltending in a second, but first, quick word from our friends over at Gametime.
The Celtics are champs, the Bruins are hibernating, and Patriots training camp is still months away. But it's the summer, and the Red Sox are heating up at just the right time. And if you're a Sox fan and want to catch a game at Fenway, you got to go with Gametime tickets. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace that makes getting MLB tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And the best part about Gametime tickets? You can browse through the Gametime app to find great seats at affordable prices for all sorts of in-demand games, concerts, and other events. Want to snag last-minute tickets to a concert? Gametime Tickets has you covered. Maybe a Sunday matinee game at Fenway, or maybe even an early ticket to Gillette in September. There's no shortage of options when using the Gametime app. Some of my favorite features of the app include seat views, where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee, or else Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. You also can't beat all-in pricing, a feature that shows you the total of your tickets up front, with no surprise fees waiting for you at checkout. Gametime Tickets also has you covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, including event cancellation protection, 24-hour return guarantee, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. So what are you waiting for? Did the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, let's get back to the show.
So on D, interesting pairs here. Why don't you start with your first pair?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Zadorov, McAvoy. And again, like, I think you look at what Zadorov brings, right? Obviously, the physicality is a much-needed element that the Bruins needed. You look at his mobility, his ability to break the puck out. Gives you a lot, but I think one thing especially gives you is just options in your top four. Because, like, you could easily make the case, right, that he could be with Brennan Carlo, and if you're able to put Lindholm and McAvoy together, you can do a whole lot with just having a guy like Zadorov, who, again, has kind of the D zone and the PK work that a guy like Forbort gave you, but with more upside and physicality. He can break the puck out like Grizzly, even though they are vastly different after that in terms of their player profiles.
People are like, don't mention Matt Grizzly. How freaking dare you?
So again, you roll with the good and the bad with Forbort and Grizzly, but Zadorov gives you a more dynamic player and with higher upside, and I think just overall more stability, all kind of put into one player. So you do have options, but I think out of the gate, putting Zadorov with McAvoy, I think makes a lot of sense. Gives you another kind of bruising guy that I think will benefit McAvoy, because not only can Zadorov retrieve pucks and kind of do the dirty work and have McAvoy focus more down the other end of the ice where he can be really assertive. I think having a guy that brings that energy and that physicality will get more out of McAvoy, where if he's not the one that's really breaking the puck out or handling the puck, and he can just be on that attack mode, like we said it how many times, Evan, that like when McAvoy's at its best, you can see it like in the way he plays, where he's activating, where he's moving down the blue line, he's trying to make things happen. Having a guy like Zadorov who can be kind of that physical equalizer, do the dirty work, and cover for him when needed, I think it's going to get a lot more out of McAvoy's game as a result.
I agree, but I went with Lindholm and McAvoy on that top pair. Lindholm, McAvoy. Part of it is when they had Zadorov in at Warrior on Monday, they had him do a bunch of stuff with Brandon Carlo, TikToks and pictures and things like that. I wonder if there's something there. Now, again, the Bruins social media team is not creating the lines. Elaine Cavalieri and Eric Russo, as much as we love them, I don't think Jim Montgomery has them in there, putting the line charts together. Although they should. They should. I would vouch for them to create the lines. I agree with you on the parts about McAvoy having a consistent top pairing defenseman with Zadorov, but I think you get that in Lindholm too. Now, Lindholm is he as physical? No. Is he as much of a shutdown defenseman? No. But I think you're going to create a lot more offense with Lindholm with McAvoy together. I think that's going to be your offensive pair. I like balanced pairs, but I think with the top four you have of Lindholm, McAvoy, and Carlo and Zadorov, I think people can guess what our second pairs are at this point. I think you can have an offensive pair and a shutdown defensive pair. Now, will those change? Probably, yeah. But I think you can roll with those pairs for a while. And I think, in terms of puck retrievals, in terms of breakouts, I think Lindholm and McAvoy are both, adept at doing that. And I think they're going to create a lot more offense, which is something, we have not seen a lot of offense from the defense in recent years from the Bruins. I think putting Lindholm and McAvoy together on that top pairing kind of helps with that. So, and then just my second pair for those who can't figure it out yet, Zadorov and Carlo. Shutdown pair. That's your pair that, goes against other teams' top lines, is physical, hard to play against. They can move the puck, like, as you mentioned with Zadorov, like he does have that offensive side. They feel he has more to give. Carlo can move the puck too. I mean, he's not, a puck mover, but he can certainly break the puck out. So I'd go with them as my second pair. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Lindholm and Carlo. I just think they played a lot together. I would say that I think one thing that helped with Zadorov is that you're able to, I think, give him and McAvoy a little bit more D-zone reps when needed. So, because I think, Carlo has the reputation of being a guy that can thrive, I think, on 30% ozone stats and be totally fine with it. I think you can't really just give that to Lindholm, especially. It's kind of like when I feel like Carlo and whoever he's playing with is at their best, it's like when he's like with a kind of a rover, more dynamic kind of player. And it's not to say that, Lindholm is Torrey Krug, right? They're, again, very different players, but it does feel like Lindholm, even though he's, 6'4", defenseman, he's still a guy that should be really mobile and try to make things happen. Like, I think you'd rather him be kind of that 30-point mobile defenseman as opposed to just a pure shutdown kind of guy. So again, maybe if it doesn't work out and he's still kind of getting heavy D zone reps and he's kind of struggling there, maybe you do change things, and it is, Zadorov, Carlo, and you get Lindholm playing with McAvoy, and it kind of gets more out of his game as well. So again, that can change in a hurry, but I think having a guy like Zadorov just gives you that flexibility where, my initial one I think makes sense, but if it doesn't work out, you can switch to Carlo, Zadorov, and then McAvoy, Lindholm, and you got, still a really good top four, however you want to switch things around.
I was going to say, I don't think we presented different top fours. I think both are fine. I think both will happen. I think they both have their pros and cons, and I think that's going to be how it continues. Third pair, I think we're probably the same on this. Derek Forbert and Kevin Shattenkirk. That's my third pair.
Yes.
So I got those two together. I think those are going to be phenomenal. No, I got Low Ryan Peak. I think Low Ryan Peak, you got with Low Ryan, the young, dynamic offensive defenseman, with Peak, who is also young, but more of a shutdown guy. Wouldn't shock me if at some point Low Ryan works his way up the lineup. But as we've said multiple times on this show, it's a nice runway to have when he's your third pairing guy. Talking about Low Ryan, third pairing guy. And if he continues to kick ass, great. You can move him up, give him better minutes. I assume they're going to put him on a power play. They should. I would like him to be there. And I think, you're going to have, a good amount of his minutes probably will be power play minutes. As a third pairing guy, he's not getting the hardest matchups. He's not getting, even every other shift. So you can, he'll be fully rested for power plays. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I have the same group as you do. And again, it's kind of like the third line that I mapped out too, where there's a lot of high upside there, where guys can, if they thrive and take huge steps forward, they can, play themselves into featured roles. Now, again, you look at the right side after, in front of Peak. I don't think he's moving up the lineup, but he's a guy that, again, we saw last year where the Bruins trade for him. We look at his underlying numbers and be like, what the hell is, why are they giving up, Yeah, but you saw the way he played. And again, he's not a flashy player by any means, but added some physicality, had some good, puck moving capabilities, and a guy that I think probably has more room to grow. As you said, he's a pretty young player still. So you have that guy who I think complements a guy like Lohrei pretty well, can cover for him, where he's more of a rover, obviously. And with Lohrei, you saw the upside, you saw how well he played in the playoffs. I still think it's better that the Bruins give him, again, a starting role, but on the third pair, where, again, you can kind of shelter him a little bit, give him power play reps, kind of get him up to speed, as opposed to if you didn't sign Zadorov, and let's say you went with an Alec Martinez or someone who's like a definite third pairing guy, you're putting Lohrei in a top four role where, again, maybe he can do it, but you're exposing yourself to more risk by doing that. So I think third pair is a great way for him to start things off. And again, if he rolls with it, you got another great problem on your hands in terms of where exactly your 6'5" offensive defenseman slots in the lineup when you also have Lindholm and Zadorov in front of them.
I think people sometimes forget, and Lohrei was a breakout star in that playoff run, no doubt. He was outstanding against the Leafs, but I don't want to make this sound stupid, but it can sometimes be easy to jump into a playoff series or a high pressure stakes game and play great because it's like the adrenaline's pumping, you're a big game player. And it can be harder sometimes to be a consistent top four or top six, forward defenseman in November against the Utah Hockey Club or against the Anaheim Ducks, where it's just game, 13 of 82. And it can be hard. Or 84 this year, 84.
Yes.
Or is that next year? Is that kicking into gear? No, it's this upcoming year. It's 84 games, right?
I think it's next year, I want to say.
Okay, next year. Okay.
Yeah.
Still, it's 82 or 84, give or take 2 games, whatever. But so yeah, I think that's a good decor. In that, who do you got after Swayman?
I mean, it's tough. I'm gonna go with the safer bet here and say it's gonna be Korpisalo, but I think
agree.
Ideally, I do think it'd be a good problem to have if Brendan Bussey exceeds expectations and does seize that spot. And again, it's not you hope that Korpisalo can turn things around, but if you're the Bruins and you're trying to make the most.
You're over
of this
there
roster,
rooting on his downfall.
No, but again, you look at just the way things are with Bussey, who hasn't really had a shot yet. Which again, you don't really know what you have there in terms of how we do in the NHL because he's never had an appearance up there, but you don't want to lose him for nothing if he goes on the waiver wire either. So, like, would you rather lose a guy who's 26, who's put together good numbers in the AHL, has never had a shot? Would you rather lose him, or would you rather lose the guy in Corpusalo who could bounce back and could be a solid goalie, but you also have a $3 million cap hit? And again, like, putting him down in Providence only saves you $1.15 million against the cap, so not a tremendous amount. But again, in terms of just pure asset management, I think the Bruins, it'd be a lot better if a guy like Bussy does kind of prove his worth. But I think it'd have to be like a crazy, comparison in terms of what their numbers are, right? Like if Brendan Bussy's got 2 or 3 preseason games, got a 928 save percentage, and Corpusalo's like 880, right? But if like both those guys are like around like 905 to like 912, something around that kind of disparity, I don't think you're probably going to see Corpusalo be the guy that gets that spot.
It wouldn't shock me if Bussy had a much better preseason. You think about like in games, right? Not like in camp or anything, but like in the actual games. Bussy's been in the system for a long time now, had a lot of success, was good in the preseason, if memory serves, last year. Corpusalo's brand new. Like a lot of these teaching things that goalie Bob is instilling in him might not hit immediately. That might take time. And so I wonder if Bussy is much better in the preseason, if he looks a lot better. And then the Bruins are forced to, as you said, put Corpusalo in Providence, make us save that money against the cap, and go with Bussy to start. So, again, wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you? You have a exciting couple of weeks coming up. You got lots going on.
Yes, I will be away from most of July on my honeymoon, so we'll still have plenty of stuff here on both Poke the Bear and Bruins Beat. Still got a lot of topics that should still hold up. I think even though I'm away for a little bit, barring the Draisaitl trade or anything like that, which I'll do an emergency pod for my various stops as I do my best Comet San Diego impression. But beyond,
you can have a monkey. You can have a monkey on your shoulder in like
yes.
Tanzania or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So we will have you covered throughout my extended trek away. But in terms of actual content of where you could read my stuff, you can read all of it over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe, where we'll have you covered throughout this remaining couple months of the off season. So read my stuff over there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
And for people who don't know, I know you want to be modest with what your honeymoon is, but I can say what it is. So you're going to Saugus first, and then you're going up to Lowell. That's so for people to picture. That's the honeymoon.
We're taking a quick trek down. We're also going down to Plymouth too. We want to see the Rock. So not the wrestler, like the thing that the Pilgrims hit. That's definitely not the
Dwayne the Rock Johnson in Plymouth.
That'd be sick. You know what? Honestly, if he want to do a good like promotional, like if he wants to advertise his Terramana tequila, he should go to Plymouth Rock and be like, meet the Rock at the Rock. Dude, we should just be Hollywood agents. We'd make so much goddamn money.
We would clean up. We would freaking clean up with our ideas. It's like in Seinfeld when Kramer has the beach cologne idea. It's like all the ideas we have. We need more time. We need to hire interns or something to help us manage our time better. But anyways, Connor, always a pleasure. Have fun on your honeymoon. So for people who don't know this, and hopefully you're still listening, we will have episodes throughout, and Connor will be on some of those. So should be fun. Should be very fun. But yeah, that's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky, presented by PrizePicks and Gametime. You Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.